Hello, my name is Planet Becky, welcome to my channel. Today we're going to be playing Planet Zoo. In sandbox mode, I created this Greater Flamingo enclosure. It was my first attempt at making an enclosure, and some parts of it I really struggled with, and some parts I found really fun to do. So the first thing is I worked with a bit of the terrain. Now, I'm quite new to Planet Zoo, and so I still haven't quite got used to the terrain or the paths yet, so please do excuse it if it isn't that great. I took a lot of the inspiration for this enclosure from DeLadySigner's video. I will put a link to it in the description below. She used this idea of having the enclosure with a water space in the middle and a walkway out for people to see all of the flamingos, and I thought that's a really cool idea. So at the moment I've just kind of created the terrain, and I've put in some water, and I've put in a path. I thought as the terrain wasn't that steep, I would need to put in some rocks to make sure that the flamingos don't escape. I really struggled with a lot of the terrain actually, and getting it at the right depth and getting bits where the flamingos would have enough to walk, and so they had enough land space as well as enough water space. I used a lot of rocks in this, and I really struggled at first in how to picture how to make my enclosure look, because I really wasn't sure. So I decided in the end to go with a wooden fence around the back, to ensure that they wouldn't escape. Right now I'm just putting in some waterfall features. It was the first time I'd used a waterfall feature, but I thought it would look really cool. So here you can see me just kind of play around and try and understand what water feature does what. I was a bit confused by the fact that it didn't just flow down, that it was more like a simulated water feature, but I thought it was a really cool idea to have one of those in. Right now I'm just looking for some features. I decided I would build my own hard shelter for the flamingos, because I thought, I've not really done that before, and as I was quite new to Planet Zoo, I really struggled with some of the controls for it and how to build things, and I really wasn't sure. And so it was at this point that I kind of went, well, if I'm not really sure, I'm sure other people don't really know. And so I went away and I watched a video by a guy called PaulsLey. I'll link his video below, and it was all about the controls of Planet Zoo, because the Planet Zoo controls are very similar to Planet Coaster. So a lot of people already knew the controls for it, so I was just trying to work out how the controls worked, and so I needed to basically understand that. So I decided I would create my own enclosure and use some of the skills that I just learned from the video on how to do that. And I thought, they need a door, they need windows in there, and I really wasn't sure how to do it properly, but I thought I would just really give it a go. So yeah, and then I was using different pieces and trying to work out maybe if there's a way that I can get a slope into it, but I really wasn't sure, because I've not really done anything like this before, and trying to build things like a roof I found really difficult. So I thought actually I really like the idea of having a glass roof. I've seen a lot of DeLadySigner's videos where she'd done like a dome or something like that, and I really enjoyed those videos, watching them and seeing how she made them. So I thought, well, actually it'd be really cool if I could try that myself, and so I did. And actually it was a really simple and effective shelter, and I really liked it. I then decided I wanted to change kind of themes a bit, so yeah, and I decided I would give it some grass on the inside, and I thought, actually I really like this enclosure at the moment. So yeah, I went ahead and put in my flamingos and see what they thought of it, see if they needed anything different. I then thought, actually, do you know what, that's not a very big enclosure, so I made it a little bit bigger. And it was practicing a lot of new skills that I'd never used before, because I never have to use these sort of skills in other games that I play. Like, for example, I also play Sims 4, and I'm hoping to get some videos out about that. Okay, so at this point I've just put in the terrain, and I've made the terrain a bit different, so it includes lots of sand and stone, and make sure that the grass is the right amount. And I thought at this point I would try and decorate some of the water, and I used a lot of things that I hadn't used before. Now, in order to raise the plants up, I use PaulsLey's video and press the shift key and you drag it up. Now this is the bit where I really struggled with the terrain, and it's because I haven't really used it before. I was having to undo everything and redo everything because I wanted to put a path in like I had done earlier on, but I wanted to create it from further down. So I took all of the water out to see if that would help, and I tried lots of different ways on how to build the path going out into the enclosure, because I really like that idea of having like a viewing deck. So I decided I would start within the enclosure and try and work my way out, and that really wasn't working. I was really struggling with it, and I couldn't work out what was wrong or why it wasn't working, and why I couldn't get it to connect. So I ended up deleting the original path and making sure that my path was able to connect. And the reason it wasn't connecting was because the terrain was really not well around the outside. So I ended up having to smooth it all out, just like you can see me doing now. And you can see me really struggling with it, but I got the path out in the end, and I put the fence back round. And then I ended up trying to put posts underneath, because I realised that it didn't have posts underneath. And trying to get them not to show through. So at this point here I've realised that it doesn't have any rails, and I don't want people to fall off the edge into the enclosure. I'm not going to make you watch me putting loads of rails on, but this made me really concentrate on how I use my skills. So here's a Blue Peter I made it. Here's what I made earlier. And we jump to the end now, where I'm just moving the last few things along, and there we go. I put the fences all the way around, and I thought actually it'd be really cool if I could have some sort of a shelter over the lookout bit, and maybe have some speakers on the inside like I'd seen in another couple of videos that I've seen. So I thought actually, do you know what, that would be really cool. So I thought actually I would really like that in my enclosure. So I started off with the roof pieces, got them at the right height that I wanted. Trying to find the roof pieces was half of my issue, because I couldn't work out which height they needed to be. I really struggle with finding the pieces within Planet Zoo, but I think that's just because I don't know where they are yet. And then I found the middle piece and popped that in, and then I thought, well, it would look a bit weird if I had just a floating bit, so I needed a themed bit to go in the middle, and I made that go right up so it looked like it was floating over it. And I thought actually, do you know, it'd be really good if we had like some supporting poles just to give it that little bit extra. And I really enjoyed doing this because it kind of made me feel like it was my own, and I could customize it to be however I wanted, and I really enjoyed that. Trying to get them not to poke through the top though was a whole other issue. I then decided to put some education things in and make sure that everything is lined up, because that would mess with me if it wasn't all lined up. Now I'm still learning a lot about the education pieces, but I thought it was really important just to have those educational bits in there. Now, this is where I really struggled with getting the water back in. I didn't know why the water wouldn't go back in. It kept saying obstructed. It turns out the reason it was obstructed was because I had all of these flamingos in there. And I had boxed them and unboxed them and boxed them and unboxed them, as you can see here. And I realised there were more over this side, so I decided to move them all to the trade centre while I tried to get my water back in. And there we go. I ended up getting my water back in. It turns out you just had to move the flamingos out. I then made sure the path got back up and I put them back in. Now here I'm just about to start decorating, and I'm realising that maybe their terrain isn't quite right, or that their enclosure's not big enough. So actually their land bit for the enclosure wasn't big enough, so I decided I would just move the fences out a bit rather than try and recreate it all again. So I moved all of the fences out a little bit just to help with that, and it did. So I then decided I was going to decorate, and I was going to put lots of plants in my lakes so it looked more realistic. And then I thought, actually, realistically, they would also probably have a lot of rocks in there. I don't want to leave it too bare. So I thought I'd add some of these moss-covered rocks. And I decided actually to do it all the way around the front, because I thought it would look a bit weird if it just all of a sudden dropped from the path. So I decided actually to add a few different styles of rocks into the sides of the enclosures, just to give it that more natural feel of an enclosure. So as you can see here, my lake is looking a little bit more natural, and so I then decided to start decorating the land bit of the enclosure by putting a couple of trees in. I decided to put some nettles around the front of the enclosure just to give it that more natural feel, because realistically, I don't know if anyone else has been to England, but there are nettles everywhere. Whenever I go to zoos or anywhere like that, they just tend to grow really well there. They're a very natural plant. So yeah, and then I decided to put in some enrichment things. And I really love this walk-through waterfall on the left here. It's just really pretty. Yeah. And then here's my little flamingos back in there, and here we go. So I really decorated the pond bit, and I had a bit of a water walk through for them, just so that when they come through into the lake they get a little bit wet, and I thought that was really cool. So thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'm hoping to get another video up soon. Thank you.